Privyet, comrades. I am the Russian bot named Comrade Dmitry, broadcasting live from some rundown Soviet ghetto in Siberia, in the middle of nowhere in Siberia. Today we're going to be live streaming about the recent discussion between Shannon King Crocoduck and Friended Forever on anti-theism and religion. So let's begin. So what are your guys' thoughts on it?
I thought it was sort of all over the place. I don't really feel like they really were able to get much of anywhere. I mean, I've watched a little bit of Friended before, and I do realize his arguments. His argument is like, while religion isn't true, it has, it's like a multi-level adaptation, and it makes people behave better. It helps their morality, and it's just beneficial to society.
Right. And Shannon's argument was, it was kind of like, her argument was a lot like Matt Dillahunty's argument from the Inspiring Philosophy debate. We could just do better without religion.
Which is a faith position, I mind you.
Duh.
Very strong faith.
I mean, because we don't know that for sure. I mean, I can bet you with a 99.9% accuracy what their statement's going to be right after that. And they're going to say, well, no, it's not a faith position. Look at Europe. They're non-religious, and look at them now.
It's against faith positions, haven't you heard?
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, they're going to say that, but I have to point out to them again, I call it the Phil Zuckerman argument, because that's who they get it from.
Really?
And, they don't take into account, for one, Christian legacy into that. And historians will notice that, a Protestant work ethic is still underlying these European countries, for one.
Right.
And two, so I mean, while they are non-religious, like as in people like do not subscribe to a religion, they do hold religious philosophies. And
well, I would argue that anti-theism is very much a religion. It's just in spite of a higher power.
Well, yeah. I mean, Shannon's argument was more or less that religion is constraining, because people have to fit all their ideology. They have to fit all their beliefs into a schema, she says, into a set of beliefs or a set of circumstances, and it makes them think irrationally. But
as if that's the only thing in the world that makes people think irrationally.
Because it makes people think irrationally because they're not willing to accept new information that conflicts with the religious views. And as a non-religious person, she's able to do that, which to me, well, of course I don't think that, I'm trying to be charitable with her, but she seems to be implying by that somehow religious people are stupid and don't change their mind on beliefs, or change their mind on their religious opinions or their religious beliefs that they hold.
Well, she's under the impression that religion is inherently dogmatic, and that's not true when you look at history. Religion, like Christianity, when you look at Christianity in particular, it has changed, throughout. Like, say, Christian morality in the 11th century was very different from Christian morality in the 15th century, and so on.
Ended slavery in the Roman Empire.
Right, and she also brought up slavery too. I noticed, like she said, people justified slavery through religious justifications.
Oh yes. So what excuse did atheist slave owners have?
Well, there wasn't a whole lot of atheist slave owners back in like the 19th century. Atheism didn't.
But for the ones that were there, what excuse did they have?
A lot of the people that did condone slavery weren't even Christians. Like the founding fathers, a lot of them weren't. And
yeah, they were deists.
And they condoned slavery because they more or less seen it as like it was the best thing that they could do for that moment.
Right, and that was a common argument for apologists for slavery, chattel slavery.
Yeah, they said like it's the best. Like they said they would say the black people are better off now than they were in Africa. That they should be grateful for what they have here. They, they also said, stuff like, well, here's another thing. They always make it seem like religion was what justified that, really. But when they don't take into consideration is that it was a huge moneymaker. It was, it was economically valuable. So, I mean,
many African kingdoms, they loved slavery because they were making a shit ton of money off of
they're enslaving the dregs of their society long before before the white man even came along. It was their chiefs that offered them to the white man in the first place.
Right, a lot of the stronger tribes would dominate the weaker African tribes to sell them into or take them over and then enslave them and sell them to the white man or to the Arab.
Well, I mean, here's what's funny, another thing that I noticed about Shannon, like, and here's what I even get unfriended for, because all of them have the like, they don't want to argue for atheism, but they want to make the bare assertion that, atheism is true, and we have that presupposition that atheism is true, therefore religion is wrong. I mean, I can easily do that with I can easily do that with deism and say that, deism is true, so therefore we should not, have like atheist like this, atheist morality or sets or something like that, because I've already assumed my position is true from the get-go.
Right.
And I'm
right.
Not,
is a lot of atheists. The reason why that is because a lot of atheists, they look at different. They'll say that different religions have different mythologies, and they'll say, "Oh, which one's true?" And then they just argue.
I say this way, like, what makes your Earth shape any different than all the other possible Earth shapes they could be?
Right.
So I mean. Like, you don't believe that the Earth is a triangle. You don't believe it's a rectangle. You don't believe it's a million other different shapes. But what are the odds that, the shape that you've decided, like oblate spheroid, is the one correct one out of the millions of other possible shapes that, people have over time believed the Earth to be?
What do you think of the back and forth between Friended and Shannon and Crocoduck engine?
Do what?
What do you think of the whole discussion?
Yeah, what about it?
What do you think overall about it?
Oh, like he said, it just went into different places, and it just one thing led to another.
I mean,
I noticed Islam kept getting brought up.
Yeah, religion is bad because it's false, and religion is false because it's bad.
Right.
And so, and they kept bringing up reasoning. Like, me and Robert discussed this beforehand, but I said, like, anti-theists can be some of the smartest people out there, but once they actually do try to discuss their anti-theism, they become complete idiots. Because, on one hand, I'll get on Shannon for this too. On one hand, they have it where, religion is too restrictive, and it constrains people's thoughts because they're trying to fit it to a mold or something. But on the other hand, they say religious people, like even among their own sects, can't agree with each other on a position, and they'll debate with each other over it. So, which is it? Are they too restrictive in their thinking, or are they constrained?
They presuppose that their thinking is superior to any religious thinking at all.
Right, and then they'll use the argument that there are like 40,000 different Christian denominations within Christianity.
At least we have diverse perspectives. They operate as a hive mind.
Generally, yeah.
Well, here's what's funny. They'll say that, a bad ethical system can come from an untrue thing. I said, even a bad foundation for ethics is better than no foundation for ethics.
Right, yeah, one guy in the chat says that even Islam has something to offer, even if it's a train wreck of a religion.
Well, hell, even Scientology has something to offer.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, I pointed in the discussion or in the chat.
Well, no, I mean, no, it's true. I mean, because like, it may sound harsh, but I mean, at least if you become a Scientologist, yeah, you'll be a part of a cult that will dogmatically watch you. But at least if you're a Scientologist, they're offering you, granted, a bad moral ethics system, but they're at least offering you a moral ethics system.
Right, and I pointed out that that Islam pre al-Wahhab and pre Salafi, I don't want to say it was like a paradise or perfect or anything, but it wasn't like anything what we know it now.
I mean, it's jacked up of a religion as Islam is. It's still miles better than anti-theism.
Well, I mean, like, I personally have always said, like, if I have the choice between living in a Muslim theocracy or state atheism, I would much rather choose the theocracy.
Right, because, if you're living in a traditionally Islamic society and you're either Christian or Jewish, you're in what you
and if you're living in Arabia, there's the rainbow-colored cities and the numerous wives. That's a bonus.
Yeah, I mean, like, here's another thing: is like the whole.
And you still at least believe in a higher power.
Like, this may surprise you guys, but I mean, Engine already knows me well and good. Like, I'm an anti-humanist. Where I think humanists are real. I mean, they put way too much stock in the rationale of humans.
Oh, they put too many eggs in their basket of rationalism.
And if there is no higher power or objective judge in the universe, then the universe doesn't care if you're rational or not.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. They also fall under, Alvin Plantinga's evolutionary argument against naturalism, which, all of, like, if we assume that, unguided evolution is true, then it has to be granted that all of our beliefs may have been decided not because they were true, but because they were useful for survival. And once you get to that point, then there is no discernible way we can really know what the truth is. And so, I mean, no matter what, we're just destined to be irrational.
Right. Engine and Steve McRae had kind of a back and forth going on in the chat.
Yeah, I tried asking him why he usually sides with atheists, and he's like, "Well, I just go over with who has the better arguments." And I'm like, "Really? So you think atheists have better arguments?" And he's like, "Well, I've seen no theist argument." I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Yeah, I saw that, and I was like, "Oh, I would really like to have a discussion with him then, because I could probably,
like, really,
hopefully,
what are, like, I would really challenge, like, him, present me these arguments that they give, like, even, like, any of them, because, like, I've been on YouTube for about 10 years more, like, 10 years. I've been around with this whole atheism thing for about maybe, for a year, and I've talked to many atheists and stuff like that, and really, they've only had two presentable arguments that they've given me. One, the problem of evil.
That's the only legitimate argument they have.
And two, like, the universe was not how I would have created it, therefore, it wasn't created.
That's just fallacious reasoning.
Right, I've always said that the problem of evil is their own they have. Everything else,
the logical problem of evil just fails. Now, the probabilistic version is good. Now, but the logical version is just garbage. And that's typically the only ones that atheists know, because they're not well equipped enough to know the difference between the probability version and the logical one. And
yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
And, like, what's funny is like, it's hard to understand, like, how they can, on a naturalistic basis, like, say, anything is objectively wrong or something, or is really wrong or not. Because, I mean, really, under a naturalistic worldview, a racist and a pedophile aren't really doing anything wrong. What they are best doing is going against the herd morality or just holding an unpopular opinion.
Yep.
You know,
yeah, because ancient Rome and Greece, they had what was it, pederasty or whatever it was.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing that I find funny. Like, you know, I can defeat a moral anti-theist, you know, like a person that's an anti-theist for moral reasons.
But like at least Godless Cranium pointed out one correct thing, that anti-theism is not a moral system. I would say it's a moralizing system with no basis.
It's a lack
he pointed out. Yeah, that's what he said.
But presupposing atheism is correct. We're just stardust, insignificant meat machines, soulless, random meat sacks on a hurling ball of rock by chance. There is no such thing as morals.
Well, yeah, and another thing is, like, there's no such thing as moral accountability, because, I mean, if ultimately your fate is the same as the serial killer, you know, non-existent, then, you know, even if there could be an objective basis for morality, why not just embrace immorality?
There's just no basis for it, given atheism.
So, I mean, no, I'm just saying, like, even if we could grant that under a naturalistic paradigm, that there could be objective moral values and duties. Let's just grant that as a possibility. I don't believe that, but let's just grant them that. Like, they would still leave them with the problem of moral accountability. Like, you know, if, you know, because even within a set and objective right and wrong, like, ultimately, what would be like, why not just embrace your immorality? And because, you know, ultimately your fate is going to be the same as the serial killer or the child molester.
Right, and Shannon, you know, going back to what you said, her argument was that religion is too constricting. But then, you know, I have to ask, is she a total hedonist then?
Yeah, I mean, because atheists always do this, where they say that, like, all constrictions are bad constrictions in their mind, because, you know, they're edgelords for the most part. You know, they want to rebel. Like, you know, I've always said this: atheism, you know, new atheism has produced two types of people. One, 14-year-olds that think they have the wisdom of 40-year-olds, and 40-year-olds that legitimately do have the wisdom of 14-year-olds.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I go after the whole humanistic perspective of men are inherently reasonable, and I say no, men are by and large unreasonable.
Well, look at our
history. Because, like, you know, because secular humanism has in the past been used for what we now know as bad purposes. Because, like, hell, a lot of the men that worked the gulags in Soviet Russia called themselves humanist, because they believed they believed what they were doing was the best for the human society.
Right, and same thing with the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. They believed that killing 1.7 million people was for the people, so to say.
So, I mean, why prefer one person's reasoning over another person's reasoning if they both say they're humanist? Because, I mean, they're both working in the mindset of trying to better the human race.
Yeah, eugenics was once done to, quote-unquote, better the human race.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing,
they thought religion... They thought society would be better off without religion.
Ernest Haeckel, H.G. Wells, and Julian Huxley, they all called themselves humanists while supporting eugenics because they reasoned that was best for humanity.
I think also George Bernard Shaw was also a eugenicist too, and he was a supporter of Stalin.
Yeah, I mean, and like this whole idea of moral progress actually comes from Christianity and post-millennialism, because it says, Christ will return one day only after we improve the world. Secular humanists have just more or less took the idea, replaced God, and put the idea of humanity with it, with redemptive meaning in it. So, far from getting away from religion, they're just taking from it.
Right, as the cult of reason, once said in revolutionary France, le people.
So, I also, I go after the whole humans and rationality because, I use a 1974 experiment entitled, Judgment Under Uncertainty, I can't pronounce it, Heuristics and Biases by Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman. It showed that humans naturally have cognitive biases that defy clear logic. When we make choices, we tend not to take every possible factor into consideration, but simply use mental shortcuts that fit our cognitive biases.
Right.
We are just inherently, irrational for the most part.
Right.
So that's why, I find it funny because I do bring up this topic of humanism, and I point out that I'm an anti-humanist. Well, they say, well, you're a communist. I said, I do have a philosophy that I go towards with my anti-humanism is it is based on a Marxist, but I'm not a communist. Louis Althusser, I can't pronounce his last name. I go after, I take more of his anti-humanist stance where I just sort of believe societal structure and social relations are just more important over the individual consciousness. And, things that belief, desires, and judgments of human individuals are just the product of social practices, which society molds into the individual.
Right. I noticed that Shannon she's kind of under the impression that any kind of open religion will inevitably lead to a society run by ISIS or the Inquisition in Spain.
But she's a big she has I love her to death. She's a good friend. I like her. But she does have a big fetish for inductive reasoning. Well, I can do this inductive reasoning here. Largely, religion has been pretty helpful to us in the past. And it doesn't really look like that's changing anytime soon.
No.
And so, if we're going to use inductive reasoning on this, like I say, it was very helpful in the past. Why not just, and I consider the past a reliable guide to the future. So why not just extend that into the future?
Right, definitely. I'm a historian, and as historians, we're supposed to look back in the past, and we're supposed to look back at the past and take what is good, and learn from what is bad in humanity's history.
Well, with Shannon she goes more for the liberal, she goes with the Richard Dawkins approach, where liberal and moderate religion justifies as religious extremism.
Does she really?
Yeah, I think she goes more on that level. Where the liberal and moderate religious people, they justify religious extremism.
Right, and that's what Sam Harris has said too.
This is absurd because does a moderate drinker of alcohol encourage the alcoholics?
Right, and not only that, you're gonna alienate any potential allies you have against extremism. I am admittedly very critical of Islam in its current form due to its intolerance right now, but at the same time, I realize that
here's my funny thing about it, with Islam, unlike a lot of people, whether they be Christians or atheists, I do sort of go after them with Muhammad because they tend to use a presentist mindset when going over Muhammad's life.
Well, but let me finish what I'm saying. I do see the value of having even many Islamic religious figures like who is that guy? Imam Tawhidi, I think that's how you pronounce him. His name. I do see, the importance of having those kind of Islamic religious figures as allies against the fight against extremism and radical jihadism.
Yeah, I mean,
because otherwise you're going to run into the clash of civilizations theory.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of just a bunch of stuff like that they just go over it. Like a lot of the talking points I've heard a lot, and I've actually have a notepad full of just, it's literally like entitled, behaving, and it's just filled with almost every possible atheist talking point you can think of.
Right. Yeah, and I have a problem with that Sam Harris argument too, because it's like then he views all religious people as potential enemies.
I mean, because like I would say, I doubt free will because of the fact that I can predict when atheists will say way before any brain scanner could do it too.
Right. He seems to think that we lack free. Never mind. We're gonna get into a free will discussion if I say something, but
I mean, like
he said that like knowing what you're gonna do ahead of time based on thought experiments goes against free will, but no, taking action to prevent someone from doing said action would prevent it.
Well, I mean, and here's another thing is like, with Shannon and them, like, they like I've repeated this before, but like they make this idea that having restrictions or having constraints is like a necessary bad thing. I mean, like, how constrained would we be with, like, one could make the argument, like, because I'm going to be doing a video on this in the future. It's about like a typical anti-theist argument where they say religion was made to control people. And I said,
oh yeah,
like, I mean, I put in there like the fact that, I mean, even if that was its origins, that has no bearing on the benefits it has now. I mean, because a lot of the things that we consider great now had bad origins in it.
Right.
Like, for instance, you know what the original purpose of having a best man at your wedding was?
Make sure the bride didn't run away.
Yeah.
Really?
That was the original purpose. And you know what? We had trying to think of the other word.
Bridesmaids.
Bridesmaids.
Yeah, they were bodyguards.
They were bodyguards for the bride to make sure that her exes didn't try to steal her. Or someone didn't harm her. So I mean, a lot of the traditions we have now came from very dark times, but that doesn't like mean that, just saying that the origin is bad, therefore all the benefits it ever is going to have is bad. Is
right?
Absurd.
Isn't that a genetic fallacy?
Oh no, that's not. I mean, you could say it is, but like, it wouldn't be saying that. It wouldn't be saying religion itself is right or wrong. It would be saying its effects are right or wrong.
Okay. I gotta brush up on my fallacies.
I mean, a genetic fallacy would be like how they say that, well, if you were born in China, you would be an atheist. Or I mean, like, well, no, you wouldn't say that one. If you were born in India, you'd be a Hindu. If you were born in the United States, you'd be a Christian. Yada yada yada. You go through all that.
Why don't you tell that to the millions of Christians who are killed every day in the Middle East?
Well, yeah. And here's what's funny, like, they do, anti-theists tend to have a select bias where, like, they'll go in the Middle East and they'll say, hey, look, there's this one atheist that got killed there. Let's completely not take into consideration that they have 400, like, there's millions of Christians that are getting killed outside of them.
Right, and Shannon brought up the whole anti-homosexuality stuff in the Middle East.
Did she really?
Yeah. Oh, hi. I've invited Max in. So,
hello there, Michigan Max.
So can someone check? Is it true that I'm shadow banned over on Friend's channel? I'd be curious because I left a whole bunch of comments, and then somebody was asking me, did you?
I didn't see your comments. Did you see his comments, Injin?
Did somebody remove them?
Do what?
I have no idea. Injin, did you see any of Max's comments?
Nope.
Where are my comments? They may have been removed. I now look at the chat, and
I've seen your alter ego Eve Canine in there.
You did not see me. I left a bunch. I want to, just for the record.
I saw your alter ego.
I heard you, yes, but I'm mentioning something significant, that this means I am apparently shadow banned, which leads me to question why. I wasn't being in the least bit nasty. I was asking questions. Huh?
What'd you say? What did you say in the comments? Just wondering.
Let's see, because apparently, either I'm shadow banned or they just flat removed them, because I left comments, and they're just now I don't see them either. Maybe they'll reappear later. Maybe they're further up.
Well, they probably did that because
what was your impression of this stream, though? Because I got to be honest with you, creepy was the vibe I got from it, which none of them may be conscious of. But then again, maybe I'm just not hearing it right. I did get caught up leaving comments, and I left comments for quite a few.
Well, what do you mean by creepy, though?
Darwinian realist, huh?
What do you mean by creepy, though?
I find it unbelievably arrogant that anybody thinks that it's just socially acceptable to be an anti-theist at all, and that an anti-theist and another atheist and some other non-religious person is allowed to go around talking as if religious people aren't even there and don't have a point of view.
I wonder why they didn't bring a religious person on there.
Psychoanalyzing us and treating us sort of like animals.
Well, but here's the thing: Brenda did stand up for religious people, though, throughout his. I mean, he was going up against.
And honestly, I would ask Friended or anyone else in that community with the guts to talk to me. I promise to try and not be all cranky, but literally the reverse question, just to be fair, if Friended has the guts, should be asked: should religious people have to tolerate atheists at all? And if so, what is the reason? And they all get upset when they hear that question. But when they want to sit there and talk about being anti-religious,
the thing of it is, if you say that stuff, they think you're gonna go all ISIS on them.
I think they're going to go all Stalin on me. So I literally don't care if they act scared. It's a fair question. Why do I not get to ask it?
I would never do that. I'm not communist.
Yeah, see, I don't accept that as an answer any more than he will apparently accept his, hey, you know what? My religion is not incompatible with science, because it's not. And it's not a threat to science, because it's not.
No, the Catholic Church has been one of those.
I'm supposedly ISIS? You're fine. You're Mao. Congratulations.
No, but you do kind of generalize when you say atheist instead of anti-theist.
I'm saying you have to kind of wean off the generalizations. I mean, use the term anti.
No. Because you know why? Let's say you're one of those atheists who says, I would never do something like that. Yes, but you'll entertain polite company with someone who does talk like that.
Right.
That just puts you right next to them and not willing to condemn them, which is, by the way, the anti-theist view should be condemned by any decent person, including any decent atheist. It should be condemned. People advocating for it should be viewed like Nazis and communists, because that's how hateful and totalitarian they are. Please tell me I'm wrong in that. And please tell me why no one in the atheist community will address my question on that and really talk to me about it. Because when I hear an anti-theist speak, or I see somebody, trying to strike a neutral pose and just listen to their provocative idea, well, let's entertain my provocative idea that the non-religious and especially the anti-religious should be viewed as enemies by those of us who are religious. Because I really do get along better with my Hindu and Mormon friends than I do with people who talk like this. Who does he think he is? Who do they think they are?
The thing about it, though, is that from Shannon's point of view, she thinks that how do I want to say this? She's an anti-theist and she supports anti-theism, but she thinks that.
Then I'm absolutely right in every negative thing I've said. She's a horrible human being.
Well,
no.
Let me finish real quick.
Shannon Q, you are a horrible human being, and you have proven that, you lied about who you were the first time we met. You're just a liar, and you are a hateful bigot. And I've met neo-Nazi women, and I've met communist women. You're no better than them. I mean it. You're horrible. I would never let you near my child if you are an anti-theist. And if I found out one of you was in the public school system, I would try to get you fired as a hateful bigot. I mean it. Well, how should such a person be allowed in a position of authority? Those of us who are religious have a right to a say in our own governance and how we raise our children. Who do these horrible people think they are, and why are they qualified to diagnose us as a threat?
What she thinks is that she thinks that she could support anti-theism and still support freedom of religion, and I would actually disagree, because when you look at any,
not only can she not, her view is inherently totalitarian and oppressive. And I don't care how pretty she is or how much her feelings I get hurt. See Heil, you little Nazi girl, and I have no apologies for calling you one.
I wouldn't
call bad as one.
Nazi.
I would not.
She doesn't adhere to National Socialism.
I'm sorry. No, you do not get to tell religious people to shut up. You do not get to tell religious people that they must put their beliefs aside because you're the rational one. You don't get to do that.
Right, and Brass was talking about...
No. That instantly makes you an enemy of human rights.
Right, but Brass was talking about how many atheists predispose atheism, right, Brass?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the thing is like, if you're going to make the presupposition that atheism is true, then yes, of course, because her argument is, you should not base your ethical or moral foundation on untrue things. Well, if you're presupposing atheism that is the correct point of view, then of course, because I don't agree that you should base your ethical or moral...
and then she needs to back up her positive claim. Because the idea that there is a God ultimately running things is well evidenced to most of us.
Yeah, I mean, I just say, if you're presupposing atheism, you don't get to just make the bare assertion that atheism is true and that we have to just accept that. You either have to back up your argument with, you either have to back up your claim with a statement, or we have no reason to entertain your assertion.
I really want to say it right now. In terms of some of the most horrible people I've ever encountered as human beings, John Gleason and Caitlin Clow are better human beings because they're more honest about what they are. Shannon just plays nice.
They are.
And there's nothing reasonable about her position any more than the position of a neo-Nazis. Period.
I wouldn't go there because
I would. I just did, and I mean it. It's supremacy.
Totalitarian. I just think godless. Godless
and Caitlin are honest about their hatred. They've made it very plain. They'll even go after and make false allegations. I mean, really.
Just let Brass finish.
All right.
I just said I dislike Caitlin Chloe and Godless Cranium because they push false history. They push false history. They're anti-theists first before they're rational thinkers. They're rational thinkers.
You're talking about engineer, not cranium. Cranium's our friend.
Right. Oh yeah, sorry. I know about seven. I'm sorry. I know about seven.
Cranium's just a flake.
I like him.
I hope he grows up one day and realizes he's in something really sick and awful. But
I wouldn't call him
what?
I wouldn't call him a flake. It's just wrong.
Oh, I just meant not a. I mean, he's just. I don't think
his position is a flake.
Some of the others, yeah. I just meant his
position is a flakish
position. I think he's more of a clown. Although I keep wondering if he's growing a conscience. Because seriously, these people
don't say that.
Huh?
Don't say that.
Look, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I'm sorry, like, I got it wrong. I mean, engineer, I like Cranium. Cranium's a good guy. I like him.
That's what I'm saying. Engineer is not very bright. And I'm sorry, but he's not.
No, he's not.
But he's very honest about his hatred. Then you have slimy little snakes who pretend to be nice, but who have a supremacist ideology, and they want to re-educate our children to their ideology. And I don't see why there's no ideology here.
Let's just leave.
Engineer is a feminist and an easily offended cuck.
Well, I don't care if let them get offended. I'm really trying hard not to swear so much and really not trying hard not to yell so much, but seriously, these people are evil. They're evil. I would not sit down to dine with one of them until they retract their odious, hateful bigotry. Atheists started, I remember, saying, we just want acceptance. And now they want to shut down anybody who doesn't think like them. Shannon Q, you wish to be the thought police. Don't come over here trying to be nice and flirty or jokey either. You're beyond horrible. And people are right to dislike you. Most of the girls don't like you anyway.
I would disagree. I would say she at least tries to be substantive, but even though she fails.
Please. And her use of psychology basically boils down to manipulativeness. These are you're sitting there. They're sitting there basically talking about religion, like the moderate Nazis versus the real Nazis versus the Nazi sympathizers who aren't as extreme as the actual Nazis.
Or a better analogy would be the post-slavery white men. Like we should be nice to the niggers. No. The niggers should be back in chains where they belong.
I'm gonna get
actually, you know what? You're gonna need to bleep that, or YouTube will take it down. I hate to.
Yeah, because I'm gonna probably get a strike for that, Indian.
You know how to go in later and edit that out.
That's how they talk.
Wait,
India. I don't think there was anything racist about that context. I would have let that go, but literally someone made me back on the channel because of it. So, I'll show you how to go in and edit part of it out later. How far into this are we?
Oh, pretty far, but whatever,
You're gonna want to, Robert. All right. Well, whatever. You're exactly right. I'm only avoiding the language because Christians are NI-ers to people like Shannon Q and her odious friends. There's no compromising with these people. They've made it plain. They think they are superior to us and that we are dangerous and need to be controlled. And our ideas need to be kept away from children. This is how they think. And then they will lie to you and say they have no ideology and no agenda.
I'm curious as to how Shannon would react if her son were to find God.
I'm almost certainly she would brainwash him and tell him that is a lie and a delusion rather than exploring the evidence with her child. That would be my guess. Because it's a deep ideology she has picked up, which she will not admit is ideological, which makes it more terrifying because she will not admit that she has an ideological position. She just kind of presupposes herself the rational person who's going to determine for the rest of us what science and rational is. I'm sorry. There's nothing excusable or moderate about the anti-theist position. It's a totalitarian position that seeks to shut people up and censor ideas and kill ideas. Punish people.
I would say to Shannon that, I would say to Shannon that you can't have anti-theism and freedom of religion at the same time.
You cannot.
Generally.
What happens if I want to build a religious community? Am I going to be forbidden to do that? Under what circumstances am I allowed to be free to practice my religion, ma'am? And mistress, will you give us permission? Will you give us kindly permission to have our own communities, or must we be kept apart?
Will you keep our children away from us until they've reached a certain age, just so they're not infected with our ideas that you don't approve of? And did I hear that she said that she was blaming the gay angle again, even though she's been given scientific evidence that homosexuality is genetic and is not caused by religion? And even
religion is just one excuse of many.
Even though she's already been given evidence that secular regimes have often persecuted and murdered gays, she still wants to put that on Christians? Again, why is anybody being polite to her? She knows this is not true. She has been given the evidence that it is not true, and she has ignored it.
Well, she brought up how
that looks like a hateful hate propagandist to me. No apologies, dear. Looks like what you are.
She brought up the whole, gays in the Middle East who, suffer homophobia, like in ISIS.
I want to know about atheist homophobia and all that stuff on the alt-right. It is much more virulent than Christian homophobia is. What will we do as Christians and atheists together to fight the virulent racists of the atheist parts of the alt-right? Will Shannon work with us on that? Will Steve McRae? Or will the religious people still be the ones who need to be suppressed and shut up and not allowed a full voice in their own governance?
Well, Max, it will just be like
answer. I expect her to posture that their feelings are hurt, rather than directly and non-evasively answering these very direct questions, because they're not rhetorical. And by the way, to any claim that I am insane, please demonstrate any evidence for that beyond your own armchair psychoanalysis skills. And do be careful.
Huh? Okay, so you think that this and that.
Well, when it comes to the alt-right, it'd just be like last time where, the Catholic Church resisted the Nazi regime.
There are virulent racist and anti-gay atheists prominently in the alt-right. Among them, Richard Spencer. They're going to say, he's not religious and he's anti-Christian and he talks like you people way too fucking much. You going to do anything there? Maybe they will. They'll just sort of auto-condemn him and figure that's enough, and not say anything about the hateful, bigoted anti-religiosity. And that's because they are hateful bigots themselves.
When they go after Richard Spencer, they'll go after his talking points, but they won't ever take into consideration that his anti-religious nature.
Yep.
They won't take into account his anti-religious nature. Like, sure, they'll say his Nazism is bad, but they're never going to use that his atheism may play a part in it.
Yeah, we're just doing a late night stream. I'm going to wind up asking the same questions again. Maybe we should do this stream again in another day or two, think a little more about it. But I want to know if Friended or anybody else will entertain our counter question, whether they will have the guts. Anybody want to go ask him? Because I can't seem to reach him. And I seem to be shadow banned on his channel. I'm not upset with him. I just seem to be. I'd just like to know if he or anybody else in the atheist community will host me to debate the question, should religious people generally tolerate the presence of ideological anti-religious atheists? Should we even tolerate them in our society at all, and why? And should they be allowed to hold public office, and should they be allowed to have positions within government of authority, especially over children, if they talk that way? Because seriously, most of us who are religious have no reason. What is our reason to put up with you who declare yourselves our enemy?
Can I pose a hypothetical question to what they would probably say? Now, how would you treat anti-religious atheists, say, if you were to not tolerate them?
I would certainly at this point advocate laws banning them from having jobs in government. I think I might advocate that. That might be a good starting point, especially any involving children. I don't think such people should be allowed near children. They are a clear danger to them. Now, that's a harsh, provocative position, but it's no more harsh and provocative than the position of those who say we should not be allowed to raise our children religious, or who claim, without any real scientific evidence of any kind, that raising a child is child abuse. to raise a child religious as child abuse. They make that claim without evidence. It is a bigoted, unwarranted, hateful claim, yet they talk about that routinely. People like that should be kept away from our children because they will lie to our children. They will lie to our children and say, there's no evidence for God. There's no evidence for an afterlife. The religion is just fairy tales. You know what? Those are all lies, and such ideologues need to be kept away from positions of authority.
Then in the conversation, then it started going on. It's like being a child. It's like Santa Claus.
See, and it's like, why are we listening to such people?
No, but every time they make a Santa Claus argument, I always point out that he was based on a real person who punched out the heretic.
You know, and that's a good joke, but they just keep going past it. They know better. For example, Shannon Q knows better. Steve McRae also knows better.
Well, he knows better, but he just sides with atheists most of the time.
Without noticing that it's idiocy. Just lets it go by. Just lets the fake history go by. Just lets the fake science go by. When does he ever get challenged? On the presupposition.
You know, I'm kind of disappointed with Steve now because he said that he claimed that there's no good theist arguments that he's heard.
Yeah, I've always believed he was not an honest man, and I still believe he is not an honest man. I think he is a slippery ideologue, and I think I identified him correctly as a slippery ideologue.
I kind of want the whole community thing out of this because, like, I don't want to make it appear like I'm trying to start shit with him.
Well,
so,
okay.
Anyway, we can go back to
Huh?
Yeah, I mean, we
can do another one in a couple of days. I already have something planned for tomorrow. What do I have for tomorrow?
I mean, another thing is, like, I do think they tend to have this big SJWs, like, you know, you're not allowed to criticize gay people or the gay movement because that's big.
Rob, JMD wants to come on the stream.
Oh, is he?
Let him come on.
Did he watch it?
Stream, sorry.
Send him a link on Facebook.
See, this is what I mean. When I hear these people talking like this, I think Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Mormons, witches, we should all just get together and point out what horrible, controlling, totalitarian, elitist people these are.
Right, and I think that's good for interfaith discussion too.
I'm sorry, what?
What I would
you want me to stop ranting now? Is that what you're saying? Is basically you asking me to stop ranting at them now?
Yeah, stop ranting.
Okay.
I would say, like, what I would really like to see is I would like to see somewhat of a religious revival online where more Christians and more Muslims, more pagans, or whatever, they go after and they just dogpile the atheists on their own terms, and they really show them, like, what they've been doing to Christians for a long time.
Could you invite JMD in here, because I don't know how to contact him.
Yeah, I sent him the link.
We ran an operation like that for quite some time on Twitter with a whole bunch of volunteers that were doing that, and we made them quite crazy. And if you go out on Twitter still, you'll still find people, because what they would do at first when I started is they would always target me and me as a person in every way they could target me as a person. Then I developed it into a team. And then for the longest time, they denied that we were a team, which is hysterical. If you still go to our old Twitter account, a lot of those tweets are not me at all, but they lose their minds and they all accuse me of me. And now routinely people get accused of being me who aren't me. It's because I believe I'm the first person that atheists had targeted for personal destruction, because a lot of them like to target people for personal destruction, and they couldn't do it to me anymore because basically I've already had my reputation ruined by too many people, and I'm immune to being harassed now. I've fought bigger than these guys, and I've been scared by bigger than these guys.
Yeah. JMD, did you watch the discussion between Shannon, Crocoduck, and Friended Forever?
I was at a youth group I had to go to. I watched a little bit before I came on the stream.
What'd you think?
Just the whole anti-theism thing.
I think, sir, that if you go and listen to that, you will understand some of the observations I have made about people being extremely fake and kind of a snake-ish, because really, these people are not confused. That is my firm contention. They are not in the least bit confused. They are actively there to push an anti-Christian, anti-religious message, and they are truly bigots. And there is no talking with them. They are intolerant totalitarians at heart. And I don't care if it hurts them. Go listen to it. I think, sir, you'll hear that. I should probably just go now. But we should do a real stream on this later, because I think people who thought Max is just way too extreme, and yes, okay, maybe I lose it and got cussy too much, but whatever. You go listen to that stream and remember the conversations you've had with these people, and look at what they're still saying, and look how they speak of us like Nazis spoke of Jews. And no, I truly don't think that's an exaggeration. God bless you guys. God bless.
Das Vidania.
Damn, he just left out like that.
He dropped the mic.
Well, I didn't want him to rant on mine. I didn't want him to rant on mine.
Yeah, well, by the way, hi, John the Apologist.
Hey, Mr. Brass.
Hi, John.
Hey.
Anyway,
I was just going to say I would have done this on my channel if you guys wanted to, but I was out.
Well, I'm trying to build up my channel here, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I figured, it'd be cool. What would you think of it overall?
Well, if you talk about anti-theism, now Shannon's position from our conversation was you can do better off without it.
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, I don't think you can.
No, that's a faith position. Her argument was just like Matt Dillahunty's argument when he was debating with Inspiring Philosophy.
Well, if that's it, I think it's just false.
Many of his Dillahunty's dick riders always come and defend him, and they're like, well, IP studies are faulty, they're false, they're misleading, and he's misleading, and they're like, well, at least he gave studies.
Yeah, unlike Matt, but anyway, let's go back to the whole Shannon thing, with Friended Forever. There's something I wanted to say, I forget now. It will come to me, but yeah. I wish Max really wouldn't rant a whole lot. Oh, hold on.
Yeah. But I mean, like I was saying before, they all, even Friend, they presuppose atheism is true without argument.
Well,
right.
And it's so funny, lack of belief. My psychological state is more real than any sort of worldview or proposition, even though if it's just a lack of belief, it literally is not falsifiable. So if you want to talk about unscientific atheism, by definition, if you hold to lack of belief, is unfalsifiable.
I like belief in your claim.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just stupid. They just presuppose atheism is true, and and of course, if you presuppose atheism is true, religion is going to come across as untrue.
Well, you know what our answer to be should. You know what our answer should presuppose that theism is true.
Yeah, Well, then they would accuse you of.
I mean, if you can make the bare assertion that atheism is true, then I can make the bare assertion that theism is true, or Christians can do with.
I will agree with Matt Dillahunty on this point. At the end of the day, it really comes down to what is true, and at that point, depending on what is true, then false ideas can be harmful in that sense. But I don't think religion overall is completely false.
They're presupposing it's a false idea. That's the thing.
Yeah. That and that's the problem with these debates, because you have two people who are fully convinced, and you're not actually talking about whether it's real or not. Now, I think IP won his debate because overall religion, whether true or false, is good for psychologically speaking, and so on for the general public.
Yeah, and I thought he steamrolled Matt Dillahunty.
Well, yeah, Matt with his.
Well, of course, his loyal minions are always temperamental. Like the guy I agree with totally destroyed the other guy I disagree with. Grabs another Dorito, sips another Mountain Dew, and tips Fedora.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's just, she also, like we've gone in before, is like, she believes that restriction is constraining, that it limits your mindset or something like that, which, because you have to conform to a schema. Well, her and her rationality, she can take new information and adjust accordingly. I said, no, you cannot. You are, we are all human and we are all doomed really for cognitive biases. Right. And no matter what schema you're going to adapt on a naturalistic perspective, you're ultimately you're forced to, you're going to have cognitive biases towards any position that you take. And, and you're going to, you're not going to naturally adjust your position because you're already dedicated to it. I don't know. I just, as a person that's an anti-humanist, I just do not agree with them at all on their points.
Yeah, just even if religion overall is false, which is obviously something we would all disagree on. I'm obviously a Christian. I think Christianity is the most true worldview or most rational to hold. But of course, we have some disagreements in that. But at the same time, overall, the religion does believe in the supernatural and so on, which is the common thread in all these and so on. And atheism denies all of that. So actually, they have the burden of proof because we hold a properly basic belief and so on.
Y'all also watched Friended last night where he roasted a Hugo and Jake.
Oh, did he?
I didn't see.
Yeah,
I didn't see all of that. I seen part of it, but not all of it.
What happened overall? Give me a synopsis.
No, they're getting their panties in a bunch over Jordan Peterson, which a bunch of atheists are trying to do.
Yeah, I noticed that they're going on the offensive where they're attacking
his cult of personalities winning over the cult of personality of their own apologists.
I like Jordan Peterson when he talks about politics and so on, but when he talks about religion, he just loses me.
Well, I mean, another funny thing is,
what you got to get down to it is the essence of consciousness.
Well, yeah.
Is he anti?
Here's what I'll put. Here's what I'll honestly say to King Crocoduck or Shannon or any of them. The minute that you equate, God with Santa Claus, you've lost all intellectual respect with me on any level possible.
I agree. Shannon doesn't hold that, at least from our conversation.
Actually, one atheist who's not anti-religion, Coach Red Pill, also equated God with Santa Claus. And I'm like, no, fuck you, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I said, once those words come out of your mouth, you lose all intellectual respect for me. You can show me your PhDs, you can show me your accreditants, but you can show me your references. I don't care. Once those words come out of your mouth, you're completely dead intellectually for me.
The anti-theists want it both ways, yet claim to be pro-human and think that all of us as mental children.
Well, a lot of communists were humanists too. They ultimately thought what they were doing was for the best.
Right.
So, right. Why should we prefer one definition of humanism over another person's definition of humanism? Because they both relied on human rationality, and as we can know, human rationality is not perfect, and it's subject to multiple problems.
Right.
Especially if you go into Alvin Plantinga's, evolutionary argument against naturalism.
You seem to like that argument.
It all comes down to consciousness.
Oh yeah, what is consciousness and so on?
Do that Kermit the Frog voice. I can't really do that, but yeah.
I mean, as you know, consciousness is a use or illusion.
Well, obviously, we would have that disagreement.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, the thing of it is that Shannon describes herself as an anti-theist, and the way I see it is that you could either have anti-theism or freedom of religion.
That's akin to saying I'm a fundamentalist.
I would be an anti-theist if it was ultimately false, because obviously I think we agree that spreading the idea of false ideas. Now, if you want to talk about whether it's harmful or not, I think the idea of naturalism or kind of complete neo-Darwinian like naturalism.
I am against false ideas. That's why I'm against atheists.
Well, yeah, of course. Well, I'm not against atheists. I'm more against.
I'm not against atheists, but atheism. I'm against anti-theism.
Well, I would be against anti-theist. Like, no, Shannon. I like Shannon. We're friends. I think we're at least friends. I think her anti-theism is different than someone like Aaron Raw.
She at least tries to be substantive. Aaron Raw just strawmans the shit out of what he doesn't agree with. But he'll correct himself when he makes scientific errors. But when it comes to Bible and theology and history, he will not correct himself.
Well, I mean, here's what I always say. Like, Aaron Raw is like a positivist where, he'll say, like, if it can't be proven scientifically, it's not worth knowing.
The gist of his rhetoric is God does not exist because there's no evidence, and nothing counts as evidence because there is no God. The end.
Hey guys, should I invite RC apologists in here?
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't know if he saw it.
More the merrier.
Well, it's probably a good thing that Max left.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The thing of it is, I can't deal with that kind of ranting he does.
No, I can't either.
Yeah. I think he's more
if you see Cassie J's interview with him, you'll see he's like a totally different person.
Yeah, I've seen he's more chill when he's on, atheist channels and so on.
I mean, the thing is, you just have it's sort of like with me. I had to get off comments for a while with anti-theists because I noticed that it was negatively affecting my behavior because having to correct them over and over again. So I eventually just had to say, I just need to get off before my behavior just becomes ultimately unrepairable.
That's why I always ask the question.
Dean just posted a video on Discord. You're like, anybody remember Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? She was very nice.
Yeah.
Oh, you probably don't get the reference if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, like I said, I can't deal with like Max's ranting and overgeneralizations because they do kind of borderline on the hateful.
Well, I think he has more experiences with the worst of the group, and honestly, I haven't had.
I do too. I have experience from 2014 with the whole Aya Manuela incident. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I've been doing this since 11 and 12.
Yeah, actually, that's how far back I go back. Is like 2012.
I like.
Was supposed to die 2012.
Oh yeah, well we're all dead now, but maybe B theory of time, will change that up.
Well, there is no 2012. 2012 is just relative to our subjective opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I knew they were going to do this. I predicted that after they conjectured that we have no free will, that I predicted that they'll start saying that color is an illusion, and damn they didn't.
Well, they'll say color is based on the perceiver and so on.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's subjective.
But at the same time, it comes down to, now are you holding an idealistic view or realism?
A Coca-Cola can is objectively red.
Yeah, if you hold to... Well, Johanna and Rotz would argue that everything is mental, which I disagree with that. Because I think... I agree with his quantum mechanics where on the fundamental level, matter, time, space are not fundamental, and consciousness and information is. But at the same time, I think he commits the fallacy of composition of saying, well, if it's like that at the bottom level, then it has to be for the top level. But of course, I think that's just the composition fallacy.
Another thing is me and him disagree. Me and him actually not debated. We had a discussion on it.
Hi, Christian anarchist.
He's not a Christian anarchist anymore. He's Reformed Christian apologist.
Former Christian anarchist.
RCA.
He's a Reformed Calvinist.
That's like saying Hebrew and Israelite. Yeah, just Calvinist.
It's the same thing there. Hebrews and Israelites were basically the same people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unless they're
Did you watch any of the?
Well, technically, I'm more Reformed than I'm not. So, but I'm not a complete Calvinist. I respect its.
Don't worry, you'll get there.
No, I've gone through. I go to Reform school. I know most of the arguments. I've read up a lot on it, but I do respect it trying to hold God's sovereignty as much as possible. Which, of course, I hold that view as well. But
I already agree with Calvinists on free will.
Well, no, I know Calvinists who do believe in libertarian free will. They just don't believe you have free will with salvation.
Oh, I mean, well, I know I go a step further. I just say there is no free will at all.
Well, then.
Besides
that, get a drink. I drink Sprite, though, but either way.
Did you watch any of the discussion, RC?
Barely any of it. Just mostly heard the things where Shannon explained her position for a bit while I was reading the book, and then just a couple of comments that Crocoduck made. That's pretty much.
Yeah, that's about as much as I saw too.
So
yeah. Well, that's good though. That's what the whole live stream was about. You know, this is kind of like my after show because they do a lot of after shows of the Great Debate community.
You ever notice that Steve McCrae that is the moderator, but he does the after shows with the atheists mostly?
Well, that's because
that's why we need to answer it with our own kind of pro-theist.
Yeah. Of course.
Well, he does have some theists that do come on there. I know.
Oh yeah.
Occasionally, he's had.
I've been on a few of their after shows and stuff.
Yeah,
like I was on Shannon's once.
Mm-hmm. Like there's a split within it because he's decided to. There's at least with some of the people, there's been some unfair treatments that's been going. For example, a guy named Redline ended up spreading some stuff about his roommate, who was a friend of mine, and we tried doing a podcast together, and to the point that he ended up leaving. I don't know if it was leaving or if he was kicked out of the house or the apartment or whatever they were living together. And basically, Steve just heard Redline's side, didn't get anyone else's, and just went with that. And so that caused a bit of people to leave that and form their own little off-branch groups. So.
I think of like Steve McCrae as sort of like, you ever know that one straight guy that you guys know about that? Like, you ever know that like one straight guy where everyone knows he's gay, but that he doesn't want to come out and just say that he's gay. Like everyone knows he is, but he just still wants to stay straight.
Nah,
he's sort of like that. He's sort of like he says he's agnostic, but like everyone knows he's an atheist.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's what an atheist is.
His lack of what they call their lack of belief is actually his agnosticism.
Agnosticism is just a level of atheism, just like us.
It's not.
It is just in the same way that for me,
you're not sure. He knows that atheism itself is a faith-based position.
So do you want me to take that extra step? Agnosticism first or atheism? Because I have two videos on those.
Well, it's like with Stephen Colbert.
One at a time, because I think there's like several people speaking at once.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so, Brass, like Stephen Colbert said, like Stephen Colbert says, agnosticism is just atheist without balls.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's what's his name? Michael Shermer.
Yeah,
Michael Shermer said that, but he got that.
Yeah, but Colbert said that.
Okay.
No, Ehrman said that back to Colbert. Bart Ehrman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think Christopher Hitchens also said it one time too. I don't know for sure, but
naturally he is a tribalist, so naturally.
This is the thing. If you want to say I don't know for 100% sure, that's not agnosticism. Agnosticism is the proposition that we can't have any certainty either way, so you withhold judgment. An atheist makes the judgment that God most likely does not exist. A theist makes the judgment that God most likely does exist.
So what do you call one who doesn't make a judgment, who's not convinced either way, but would like to know?
That's literally an agnostic.
Yeah.
No, and you just said that agnostic is we can't know. We can't ever know.
I can't know either way, but is open-minded. Now, they're open-minded to maybe God exists or maybe God does not exist. Because
McCrae, for some strange reason, McCrae likes Aaron Ra and Carrier, even though they're the worst of the worst.
Likes them for certain reasons. I mean, you can like people that are disagreeing with some of your views for different reasons. Like I like Bart Ehrman when it comes to the issue of the Jesus mythicism debate, but concerning all of his scholarship against the New Testament, I mean, it's like stuff he should know by now is like so terrible that a first year at seminary would just be able to write an essay that debunks the stuff that
he's still miles better than Carrier.
Right, but the point is that people can like people for other reasons besides the whole mythicism thing.
Oh yeah.
Because Carrier's written and done material besides those.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I just think the whole Jesus mythicism thing is just completely. Well, I can't say for 100% false, but I'm not going to say I'm an agnostic Jesus or agnostic person who holds that Jesus most likely exists.
And there's a better case for the resurrection than there is for his non-existence. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Now,
the thing of it is, I don't like about Aaron Ra and Richard Carrier is how they butcher.
They're dishonest. At least Aaron Ra is. I don't
know if you ever saw our response to Aaron Ra on the whole atheist states thing video he did.
I don't watch his stuff anymore. I used to, but
our videos are response to that.
Hey, well, I mean, you and RC are Christians, so I mean, like, according to Aaron, like Aaron Ra has, Aaron Ra has completely, proven, like, faith is believing what you know ain't so.
No, he tries to change the definition of faith. Like Matt Slick, even though I don't agree with Matt Slick on certain theological issues, obviously, I think he destroyed Aaron Ra on what faith is. It's trust based on good reason.
Right, and faith it meant something really different before the Enlightenment.
Aaron Ra's loyal minions don't think so.
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
even,
but they're
even Bart Ehrman,
they don't know,
like even Bart. Yeah. Oh, you go, Comrade Dimitri.
Oh, the comrade has already gone. You go, comrade.
All right. Well, I'm just saying, like, even Bart Ehrman in his book Apocalyptic Prophet, of Jesus the Apocalyptic Prophet, even he says faith, aka trusting in God. So I mean, even Bart Ehrman doesn't go with the whole, he doesn't take the Mark Twain position where, faith is believing what you know ain't so.
Well, it's not two different definitions.
Well, and yeah, again, plus at least Bart is going to the text as a New Testament scholar and examining not just the history, how the word's used, but the Greek tense that's used as well, when it especially mentions what faith is under that definition in terms of how Christian and religious section had used it. That was at least the one thing about Bart, especially during his early days, is that he focused on the history of the church as well as focusing on the actual Greek text, though he did, of course, as I mentioned, propose very liberal theories.
Yeah, the legend theory.
I don't really like. I like Bart Ehrman. I do love the fact that he took on Robert Price, and I believe, in my opinion, completely destroyed him.
Mm-hmm. I need to see that.
Price is the only Christ-myther who's an actual Bible scholar and a gentleman.
Yeah.
Well, isn't Richard? What's Richard Carrier's degree?
He's a historian. He's a historian, not a scholar.
Oh, he's a historian with an anti-Christian axe to grind and thinks he's an expert in everything else.
But keep in mind, the same time,
I love his rebuttals of the fine-tuning argument. They're just hysterical.
But keep in mind that he has the.
No, my sister's seen him trying to debunk the fine-tuning argument. She's like, "This guy's a fucking clown."
Let RC go.
Huh?
Let RC go. What were you going to say, RC?
I was going to say, just keep in mind that simply that they have the PhDs and such, that they're still not able to, that the books that they're getting done or the papers they're publishing aren't peer-reviewed, academic, accredited ones, and they aren't teaching at accredited universities, but rather at the non-accredited ones, which really don't provide you with a good, decent PhD. Like, they won't. If you were to have a non-accredited PhD under one of their courses and you go try to apply somewhere, it's not going to be as effective as one that is actually accredited.
Yeah, and Richard Carrier, he got his PhD from Columbia University, right?
Right, which I believe was unaccredited, but at the same time, you can have an accredited PhD and still proclaim your ideas. Just don't expect that you'll then be able to teach those in an accredited university, or
right, like David Duke has his doctorate at some university in Ukraine, and he can't get a position teaching any theology.
Yeah.
Well, hell, I mean, Michael Bay, he has a PhD in what, biology?
Mm-hmm.
Michael Bay, the director.
Yeah.
Hovind has a PhD also.
Hovind's PhD is and non-accredited though.
Well, Hovind is also King James only, so.
Well, that's where two of his colleges he went to were. They were King James only colleges.
Well, Brass, what were you gonna say?
That's just, yeah.
What I was gonna say is that, hell, there's plenty of young Earth creationists that have PhDs in science.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So,
well, their theological issues are messed up. That's where I think.
And hell, I know one guy that has a PhD in biology, and he actively searches for Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
who is that guy? The aliens guy? I think he has a PhD too.
Although, let me just say this. I do believe the Bigfoot research is a lot more effective than the Christ mythicism research. I mean, I could really go for Bigfoot existing way before I go for the whole Jesus not existing thing.
Well, with Christ mysters, you take on their tactics and you just get so skeptical of their own existence and just challenge them that way. I mean, that's basically what their standards are at the end of the day, is something like that, where you just deny their very existence.
Well, Richard Carrier's argument is so hypocritical because, for one hand, he says we can't know anything about Jesus from the Gospels, but wait, we can know he didn't exist from the Gospels.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
So I mean,
they're double standards.
So I mean,
okay. Somehow, a first-century Jewish preacher in the ghetto of the Roman Empire is less believable than their belief in a pre-existent archangel being that was recreated with Jewish sperm from the line of David that was carried up to beneath the surface of the moon, where he was crucified by demons, and where everybody eats, drinks, and has flesh and blood siblings, and are buried there after they die.
Is that I think Vocab Malone was actually talking about that as his position as well, which was hysterical.
I'm surprised you talk more about that than the Hebrew Israelite thing concerning him, because that was what I was obsessed with.
I don't know enough about them. Like, this is just something.
That's why he would have been a good person to go to, because he's like the first person to really encounter them.
I would definitely do a second podcast with him.
Wait, you mean the Black Hebrew Israelites?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why don't you guys go after the white Hebrew Israelites?
Because the Black Hebrew Israelites are, I'm not sure of any white Hebrew Israelites, but the Black Hebrew Israelites are the more recent dangerous cult that's vastly growing and really deceiving followers.
You're only going after the black ones and not the white ones.
I don't know if you ever... Also, the white version of the Hebrew Israelites don't really believe in the whole Hebrew Israelites. They believe in, the Anglo-Israelites, where they believe that English people are the descendants of the Israelites, and indeed white people are. Like, the Christian identity movement is really into that, and they're a white supremacy cult.
Just wait for the whole wait until China really booms up and we're going to get the Chinese Israelites.
But it's still
are they as fast growing as the flat earthers?
Who are the Black Hebrew Israelites?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're about as there's even flat Earth camps that apparently have been discovered from vocab with his interactions with a couple of them. But yeah, they're about as fast growing. You got especially with IUIC, which has plane jets that they're able to travel all the way to like Ethiopia, Uganda, and all these other countries.
Oh,
and
yeah, Emperor Edgelord is having a field day with them.
Yeah, so you have all these. Then they're going around teaching all kinds of dangerous teachings, and even degrading people to the point that they're even saying for some of them that the white people, in order for them to seek any sort of mercy, but they won't fully gain salvation, they must kiss all of the Hebrew Israelites' feet. Just get down.
They had a couple of videos on that.
Yeah, and what's even worse is that they've already caused a pastor to lose his entire congregation of at least like 20 to 30 people in one day to this group. A pastor in Dallas, Texas, ends up handing over his church while still being the pastor to the Hebrew Israelites known as ISUPK, so that they fully submit to their teachings and surrender to their authorities. And then more of the recent type of stuff we get that actually happened before the year 2000 was the violence that occurred. Like they're telling people, hey, go kill so-and-so or go bash this guy just because he's a white man. And that's because they believe that there's so much of a hated race that, kill him like God sort him out.
Well, I mean, we do have our white privilege, unfortunately, so I guess it's just our time, but my bad, that's more liberalism. But
well, yeah, I mean, here's another funny thing that they always bring up these secular states, like these secular European states, but without taking into consideration that they are all SJW authoritarians.
Well, it's also funny because Europe is in debt right now, basically. Like, can we attribute that to secularism by their own arguments?
And hell, they have a negative birth rate.
And there's no, like, in some of those countries they like to cite, there's like no such thing as free speech and the fundamental Bill of Rights and so on. No,
like you've seen in the United Kingdom that Count Dankula has been arrested and Tommy Robbins has been arrested.
I think Steven Crowder has good stuff debunking all those claims as well.
Yeah, what was Tommy arrested over?
He went to a grooming gang trial, and he was filming it, and he was filming the defendants, and he got arrested by the UK authorities there because they believe that he was interrupting the court proceedings, which I do kind of agree that he shouldn't be interrupting the proceedings, but at the same time, it was like it would be anything they would get him on. They would get him on.
Huh.
So he's a political prisoner, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, if you want to give Islam some credit, they would never have to worry about the Black Hebrew Israelites in their countries.
Oh,
well, they've got people that are going over there with that, especially like for the majority of them within England. They're definitely dealing with that. And trust me, they do plan on going to these countries. They plan on going everywhere.
So
there is something known as what is it? The Nation of Islam. They believe like Muhammad was black or whatever.
Yeah,
well,
it's pretty much a Hebrew Israelite version for Islam.
I wish JMD or URC apologists could go after David Wood and his stupid video that he did on the Muhammad, where he said Muhammad was white, where he took the Quran out of context.
Muhammad was light skinned, but he wasn't white.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he would have been Arabic.
Right, and for the most part, he's going off of the whole satire issue concerning how people like to demonize Christianity, but let's put Islam in a positive light, and they try to especially do the same thing about that. And they do the same thing about trying to say that Christianity on a plain English level basis is a white man's religion that degrades black people, but Islam never has anything like that.
I mean, I get that. But I'm just saying.
Christianity was originally
that claim, if I understand.
Christianity was originally started by olive-skinned Hebrews, but it was a black man's religion before it became a white man's religion.
Well, it went down to
it was a Middle Eastern religion.
I know, but it was black before the whites made it mainstream.
Well, I mean, that white people was not a thing yet.
No, because it went down to Ethiopia. It spread as far as
there. Oh, yeah. St. Augustine and so on.
It spread out to when Jesus was crucified, his disciples spread out, and they went as far east to India and China, to far south as Ethiopia.
Yeah. They didn't go to China yet.
Well,
for like 1,500 years.
Have you ever heard of the Nestorian Church?
Huh?
Have you ever heard of the Nestorian Church?
Yeah.
That was a ancient, late ancient, early medieval church that was in China.
I know, but that was later.
Well, I mean, could it be possible where we just give them money so they'll, like the Black Hebrew Israelites, and just give them money to go to Saudi Arabia and try to do that there?
I'm sort of the same way with third wave feminists. Just ship them off to the Middle East since they love Islam for some reason, hate Christianity.
Yeah, see how long they'll last.
Mm-hmm.
Under Sharia law.
Well, I mean, here's what I'll funny. I do this with the anti-theist, where I'll say, here's what I'll do. I will personally pay your plane ticket to China, and the only thing that I require of you once you get there is you have to wear a cross necklace, and you have to have a shirt on that says "I love Jesus" on it when you get there. I can guarantee you. Yeah, I can guarantee you, once you get out of prison and stuff, and you come back to America, you're gonna have a newfound love for Christianity.
Yeah, because then you'll get arrested by the security services there.
So, RC, do they the Black Israelites are they sort of like Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses, where they will obviously they're a cult, which is literally by definition the same thing as Mormonism and so on. Do they take certain passages in scripture and twist it around basically like Mormons do and so on?
Yeah, there's one that they use that is central to their concept, which is a passage that said, and precept must be upon precept. They basically say that means the Bible is such a unique book that it can't be read like any other book. They basically say, context, you're trying to treat a divine, unique book like every other book. Context is not what you need to do to read the Bible. You must do one verse, okay, and you see a reference.
I think the Bible itself disproves that claim, but...
Right, but they basically say that one verse that says precept, they say where it says priest, even the young earth creationists would go down that route.
They have.
Yeah, they have, but that's not the concept. That's not the concept.
That's why
they would use context as well. I've seen where even the young earth creationists use context. What these guys are saying is saying that when it says precept must be upon precept, that must mean one verse, then another random verse, then a random verse that is in the same wording. So what they'll do is get a concordance and find anything that contains this one word, and whatever lists of verses it provides, they write that down, and that's all they go to and are trained to memorize and use them when they're out doing their street teachings that they do. So there's that. There is, funny enough, one similar thing they share with Mormons, and that is they believe that Native Americans are actually Israelites from the tribe of Gad. If you look at the Hebrew Israelites, if you look at the Hebrew Israelites 12 tribes chart, among who they believe are part of the 12 tribes of Israel, they believe that anyone who is of Native American descent, at least from the father's side, is from the tribe of Gad.
The Israelites already made it clear that the 10 tribes of Israel was the northern kingdom, and the southern kingdom was the 2 tribes of Israel, Judah and Benjamin. And then when the Assyrians and then the Babylonians sieged both the capitals, they scattered.
Yeah. Exile. So
right, but no,
another funny thing is I know the 10 tribes thing. I don't know. It's just there's a lot of crazy things about Christianity, some of the crazy groups that are coming out of it. I haven't had much experience with the Black Hebrew Israelites. After having it described to me, I don't think I want to have more knowledge of them.
No.
Well, to me, it's important because they're, like I said, they're growing fast and they're taking over everywhere. Like this, by the way, this is the list of that they share on the street.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, are they growing? Are they growing through evangelical? I can't pronounce it. Proselytization, or are they growing
it's kind of like the "we was Kangs" narrative.
Well, it's because saying, like, are they growing like proselytizing, or are they growing like Islam through population? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I didn't hear you. There were other people talking. Your voice got muffled. What were you saying?
Oh, I was saying, like, are they growing like through proselytization, or are they growing like how Islam is doing with multiple birth rates?
Both. The children they have, they bring them up in there, and then they're going to targeting certain areas, especially within the north, areas such as they only target the ghetto for the most part, knowing that a lot of people can be reached through that area and easily be able to be convinced, of which then once that's established, then they take it over into the big areas and can easily just grab people's attention with that and slowly reel them in. I've seen it done in my state. And in fact, within 2 months or 3 months, I've discovered that there was like 2 camps set up in my state. Then I found out within 2 months later, 3 more just popped up out of nowhere. So they're popping up like crazy. That's
what Emperor Edgelord and Tyler Preston are trying to do with the black atheists.
Mm-hmm. But right,
part of the reason why they're growing so fast, I think, is because racial identity politics is at an all-time high, higher than we've ever seen, post-civil rights.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, here's IUIC, one of the largest groups, and this is at least their higher-ups gathering for one of their national
then you have like the one white guy in the front there.
Hold up, let me see. One white guy.
Well, the one guy like right there by the child.
Yeah, I don't know if that's white guy. Because I've asked IUIC, they won't let anybody who's white congregate with them. They literally said if you're white, you're not allowed. To me. Well, that's the thing though. It depends on the tribe chart, which can include all kinds of different people, which includes Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Hispanics. If you have someone like for example, like my friend Hunter Bailey, Hunter Bailey, who is of Sentinel Apologetics, he is white as day can be, but he has from his father's side Cherokee. So when we revealed this, they said, "Oh yeah, he's an Israelite like us, because his father's blood is of the tribe of Gad." Because his blood is Cherokee from that side, so therefore,
hey, that's me also.
So therefore, then you would be identified as a Hebrew Israelite to them.
Be a part of it.
Yeah, I'm an Israelite also.
Right, so that's where they would say do that. But if for me being German in bloodline, they would see me as an Edomite, as an Esau, and as a result would not want to talk with me that much. Would not want to congregate with me that much, and would say that I'm going to be killed by Jesus when he comes, and then I'll be the Israelite slaves.
Don't worry. Edom's not part of Israel. They're just screwed over.
Yeah. So they mass produce videos. They mass produce, different. They make sure to get people stuck in these different books. They have podcasts. They have all these things that people manage to download. I forgot what one of the things we saw is, but the IUIC alone managed to have 1 million people subscribed to their daily podcast. 1 million.
Whoa.
Well, see, half the reason why people join cults like these is because they're new movements and so on. So it may not even be an intellectual thing, just
right. And it has a lot to do with what I was saying. It has a lot to do with what I was saying is that racial identity politics are at a
That's what it started
with.
What do you think the flat Earth movement's all about?
One at a time. Wait. What did you say, RC?
I said if you look in the origins of how this Hebrew Israelite movement got started, which there's a good movie that's been released from a guy, Keith Thompson of Reformed Apologetics Ministries, that is 2 hours long and it's very exhaustive in its material on it. It started with a guy named Abba Bivens in the late 70s, and this guy was basically the first to really expound upon the idea that black people are actually the true Jewish Israelites. That's him at the top of this little chart on the screen. And then after that got exposed, then he started, having 4 of his disciples or students, start to do their own thing until this guy named Jacob claimed that he had a vision in a bar that some angel with black skin and an afro came up and said, "Black people are the true Jewish Israelites." And that's all he said. He then walked out of the bar. And after Jacob tried to find him, he supposedly vanished into thin air. So they used that. Again, this is, I believe, in New York. And keep in mind that this is like the 70s to 80s is what the context is and where this group is starting to form. And if you listen to like their early lectures, especially like for this guy right here, General Tahar of GMS, who he's the outcast out of all the groups, because he believes that you could, if one of the Hebrew Israelites, has another daughter or something like that, it's an Israelite little girl or anybody in general that's a mature age to them, and they rape them. If somebody rapes a woman, rape is okay and is actually permitted and desired by God as long as reproduction is the result of it. So he teaches that, yes, he teaches that it's okay to go out and rape as long as a baby is born out of it. This comes, and if you look, it comes from the beginning, because they originally were preaching this, like saying like when Christ kills them and they're in heaven, they'll be raping. They'll be doing all these things, being slaves and all that. But they also said that, y'all were raping our people back in the day during slavery. We'll be raping your daughters in heaven when y'all are our slaves. So again, it's all this, y'all did slavery to us, so the same thing's got to go back to you.
Yeah, and it has a lot to do with, like, I have to say thanks Obama, because he was the one who kind of injected a lot of this racial identity politics bullshit and the whole Black Lives Matter crap,
Well, I mean,
right, but that's the thing. This group existed before that. Like, they were even on Jerry Springer one time, right before what was it? It was Tazadakia. It was a guy who claimed that he was the Holy Spirit in the flesh. And before that happened, he was on the Jerry Springer show alongside the KKK.
Irony of the 2 extremes.
Oh yeah.
What was the result of that?
It was basically a result of that. You had 2 very hateful people, especially like Tazadakia, be very hateful towards Jerry, saying that white people are his demon race. Y'all are going to be slaughtered by Christ come the year 2000.
I have an idea what we can try to do.
Exactly.
How about this? We take the Christian identity movement, and we just ship them to wherever the Black Israelite people are going. So we can just hope that they. Well, that way we can just kind of hope and pray that they both wipe each other out in the aftermath.
Well, again, it depends on your Hebrew Israelite, because some are peaceful, some are violent. It really depends on your camps, because
all weapons.
There's actually adherents of the Anglo-Israeli theory who are not white supremacists.
Mm-hmm.
They believe that all can be saved, but then there's like the ones like the KKK who believe that whites are the true race and the Jews are the demon imposters.
Well, all who could be saved would be universalists, which is obviously me and RC would both disagree with that.
Right. But like, for example, like most of them will say Gentiles can't be saved, except this guy here, Racha,
Should read the Book of Romans.
Yeah, exactly. But Elder Racha here his full name is Rasha Shayar. He has a group that's called Gathering of Christ Church. They're mostly an internet group. They believe Gentiles can be saved and that they'll allow white people in their ranks.
Geez, they're very inconsistent with each other.
Well, that's why they have different camps. They will disagree with how each other form it. That's why you have originally it was ICUPK, but then especially because of the whole coming back, Jesus was going to come back in the year 2000. There was a lot of splits because of that, and that's when you have Tezadakia forms this group where he claimed to be the Holy Spirit. Then after a couple of false prophecies, you have General Yohana, who claims that Christianity is a pagan penis worshipping cult of homosexuality. Then you have Racha having his own thing.
That sounds like a wannabe Heinrich Himmler. Heinrich Himmler talking about Christianity.
Oh yeah, and then some of them will believe in reincarnation, like this guy Mashah, who claimed that he was King David in one past life, as well as being Adam, as well as being John the Baptist, as well as many other figures. And then he formed the House of David, which again had its splits from IUIC, which is the most popular brand out there, which is well organized because the guy Nathaniel, he was a former police detective, and he used to make sure that his group is well structured, well organized, and that's probably why they got a lot of people.
This is why anti-theists and us could work together against movements like this, because
no. I
would. In the sense of just false ideas, because when you have this idea of reincarnation where you're once David and so on, first off, that's completely unfalsifiable.
Yeah,
or no way to prove that as well. But
and not to mention, some of them are just very hateful people to the point that some of them will advocate, hey, go beat this person up. Like there's someone's trying to discuss and refute their points, and someone just comes up behind and just starts bashing them over, and then everyone in that Hebrew Israelite group is clapping their hands saying, "That's right, God sent us down to punish you heathens." Like they cheer and applaud it. And when they get arrested, they say it's just because persecution, Satan's trying to silence the message of God, that whole thing.
So would they view Adam and Eve as black or something like that?
Yeah, they believe everyone your originality was black.
Well, of course they're black. They came from Africa.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say that.
I disagree with you on forming an alliance with the anti-theists on that. Nebraska, hold on, let me speak. Yeah, I would disagree with forming an alliance with them because to form an alliance with them means to forget the whole history of the French Revolution in the 20th century.
Well, I don't think we're saying form an alliance. I think saying like if we were in the street together,
like we were critiquing bad ideas together, right? I guess. Just not obviously.
But would you team up with a Muslim then?
Oh yeah, like I think a Christian and a Muslim could team up against an atheist who disagree that God exists. And so
I've done it before as well.
Yeah, but of course, when it comes to her opposing views, of course you have those disagreements there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, here's what's funny about me, the whole flat earther movement too. Like
all of us joined together to destroy them.
Well, no, I mean here's what's funny about me, like with that, like. Because I have a kind of mixed opinion on it. Because on one hand, I think the flat Earth movement is absurd and it's a joke. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, when atheists critique them, they get massive downvotes and they get stupid comments. So I'm sort of like, on one hand, I should be against the flat Earthers, but I'm trying to see which one I'm against more. So
they're getting the shit end of the stick now. So how do they like it?
Yeah, so I'm sort of like, you know what? I'm just going to wash my hands from this, and I'm just going to see how this plays out.
Right. Well, Mr. Brass, you're literally the you're literally the deist here out of like all the groups here. So you're sort of in your own camp, somewhat.
Well, yeah, there's not really much deist online. So
yeah, It was big during.
And I hate the deists. Like most of the big deist camps, like on deism.com, they're pretty much anti-theist, except they believe in God. That's pretty much it. And so I just dislike them too. So there's not really that much agreement that I can find with even amongst my other deist brethren.
Right. The thing of it is, me, Engine, and Brass, we're all basically non-religious theists.
And I would ask, why instead of Christianity?
I just haven't seen a whole lot of for Jesus' divinity.
So even though the Gospels attest to the divinity of Jesus.
Oh, that would have to be a whole nother podcast. Me and RC could team up on this because
maybe we should have Brass, go up against you and RC one day.
Oh, I love that.
I mean, I would rather prefer to
because
I already do agree. I already agree that the gospel writers thought that Jesus was divine.
Well, wait, what? Why? Oh, okay. You would say that Christ himself wasn't necessarily claiming to be divine.
I believe they thought they were divine, like in the same sense that some Mormons thought that Joseph Smith was divine.
No. More like how Muhammad thought he was.
The problem is
he was a prophet.
If you accept the Gospels as reliable, it seems like you're neglecting the miracle claims, and I would sort of lump you in with the Christ mythicists and those who deny the Gospels overall. Just because of the miracle claims. But if God exists, miracles
I don't think
easily.
Not Jesus.
I don't dismiss the Gospels. I don't dismiss miracles. I sort of take more of Hume's stance on it. Although, I do sort of go with a little bit on Herman.
I'll send you my paper on Hume whenever I upload it to my website.
Yes,
his uniformity nature argument.
But if you believe that the Gospels are then reliable, or you accept them, and you just believe that they just believe that he was that, the Gospels, as eyewitness accounts, testify that Jesus professed to be God in multiple instances, especially when using titles like the Son of Man or the Lord of the House, or in the case of Mark, it's still the same thing, using the term Lord.
Or
and I do accept that could be a possibility, just like.
Well, you can say Jesus claimed to be God, or maybe the legend developed over in the manuscripts and whatnot. Just at least you accept
it's kind of like how Muhammad genuinely believed that he was a prophet.
Right, but at the same time, Jesus proved that he was actually God. Muhammad couldn't prove that he was a prophet.
I actually don't know if I would believe that Muhammad believed that, because he had something going for him. I think he would have motivation to make up.
Muhammad split a moon in half.
Well,
according to the Hadith, and as well as the fact that the moon has yet to show any signs of being.
They show like one cracker, over on the moon, and try and say that, and then God put back together or something like that. But
Mm-hmm. Right.
And he took a trip to heaven where he talked to Adam and Abraham and.
See, unfortunately, I can't say that's
on Pegasus
because obviously I believe Christ ascended to heaven, and I think he was divine, so I can't necessarily. Right. I just don't think it's historical.
Plus, Muhammad.
How could Christ ascend to heaven without a donkey like Muhammad? You need
Muhammad didn't use a donkey.
Yeah, the horse, or
what do you use, a Pegasus?
Yeah, Pegasus.
Yeah. Winged horse.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, that's much more plausible. That he ascended. How could Jesus possibly ascend into heaven if he didn't have something to guide him there, like a winged horse?
Because God,
he went up in a beam of light.
I think you know where heaven is.
Yeah, and plus he's God. He doesn't need.
I think Mr. Brass was just making a joke, but
right. But it's still, I'm gonna be firm in my faith on this, because especially considering what Injun said about Muhammad. Muhammad originally believed he was demon possessed, and so did his family.
I don't know if we have good historical.
We have from the Islamic sources, from people like Ibn Ashaq,
But even David Wood acknowledges that Muhammad thought he was a prophet of God afterwards.
He genuinely thought in the latter parts, but originally he thought he was demon possessed. This is something that he's noted, as well as Keith Thompson, as well as Anthony Rogers, who works with David Wood, and many others.
Well, my favorite thing is when they believe in the virgin birth, but then deny the crucifixion and resurrection. It's just like, so you're going to believe he was miraculously born like this.
Well, you know why that is, right?
Why?
You know why that is? Because at Muhammad's time, Aryans were a big part of the population and the like in there. So
Aryans denied too, not
I will say that their conspiracy theory that Judas was actually crucified rather than Jesus is a lot more believable than what the Christ mythers propose.
No, that wouldn't even be, because that's just simply trying to make crazy assumptions. For example, like saying that it was actually Donald Trump who was crucified on there in that place, and then he was reincarnated, and now he's in the White House. And there's like, we can come up with all kinds of things. That's basically equivalent.
But now we're all the brains.
No, that was Obama.
But I'm just a brain in a vat, and I'm being stimulated on, and you're all just in my head.
Exactly. So, I mean, just to simply say that it's more plausible, I mean, to me, it's not plausible, because it's about as plausible as if it was Obama or Trump that was actually there.
I was making a joke.
I know.
But I'm also
because the Christ myth, there is this, what they propose is just literally the most unbelievable conspiracy theory known to man.
And so is this about the Judas being on there is the most unbelievable conspiracy theory as well.
Well, see,
at least Judas was around at that time,
right? But what sources can even provide that except a document that was produced about 600 years after Jesus?
Because he said so.
Well, yeah, I get that. I'm just saying, like, you know, he was at least like, I mean, unlike saying Obama and them did it was like would be kind of out there because they weren't born in Jesus' time. So I mean, you could at least say that. Well, Judas was at least, at least Jesus met him.
See, Mr. Brass, B theory of time is true, and the government signed the time machine, so they go back to the past because it's as real as the present and future.
Yeah.
Well, all right, I can believe that.
It's
all relative. It's all subjective. 2,000 years ago is the same as today.
Yeah.
It's all perspective.
Yeah, because anything that begins to exist doesn't exist. So I have an article coming out by Ted Wright on my website. It's called "What Are Jesus Mythicists Smoking?" And
good question.
Probably weed.
Not something
weed.
Worse.
No, probably the burning bush.
Cocaine.
They're atheism, flat earthers.
Yeah.
And it's written by Ted Wright, who's an archaeologist. I don't know if he's necessarily a historian, but yeah. I did a podcast.
Well, if you're an archaeologist, you have to know some things about the history.
Yeah. Oh no, he's very.
No, would I quote him as a historian? No, but I could say that he at least has knowledge of history since his job requires it.
I think archaeology is very compelling with the law things.
I mean, it would be like using Tim O'Neill. Like Tim O'Neill technically isn't a historian, but he has a degree in medieval literature, which requires him to know history.
Technically, Richard Carrier's a historian, but
Let's just say that Tim O'Neill's credentials are as good as Carrier's, and he's done more with it.
Well, I mean, they both got their Bibles. They both got their biblical scholarship from the same place.
They did.
I have as much credentials in the New Testament as Richard Carrier does.
Yeah.
We both got our degree in the New Testament from the same college.
Really?
Nowhere.
Really?
But I mean, I just think Richard Carrier is a joke. I think, I blocked Godless Engineer.
Godless dumbass.
His faithful disciple.
I blocked him and his wife. Not his wife. His whatever she is. His girlfriend. Or whatever.
Oh, she's annoying.
Yeah, I blocked them both because they were just like they're anti-theists first, and then rational thinkers second. They conform everything to anti-theism.
They're not rational thinkers at all.
Bias against them because of their beliefs. I just have bias against them as people because they're, first off, they're very close-minded. From what I've seen, like the 10 answers on the Non Sequitur show, 10 answers answered with whatever her name was, Gallus Engineer's girlfriend or whatever.
Well, I mean, I can still, like, here's the thing. Whenever atheists, here's the thing. Sometime in the future, I am going, the Non Sequitur is going to do like another question series. I'm going to bet that, and I'm going to give you guys all place my bets here on what they're going to say. They're going to say this. Well, if you were born in X place, you would be Y. Therefore, your position is false. So, I'm just telling you, like, they're going to eventually do it in the future where they're going to have them ask us questions.
They brought that up 3 times, and there are questions that Christians can't answer.
I didn't hear that. I answered that one, and I hadn't heard that whole thing about if you were born in this place.
Well, wait. See, that they literally, if you're talking about the Non Sequitur response, that was literally 4 of the questions. The one guy was just like, "You're an atheist to all the other religions. It seems like if you're born in, India, you would be a Hindu and so on."
I didn't get that.
Explaining atheism, I was like, "Shut up!"
I didn't get that from him.
Well, are you talking about your response to the Non Sequitur with the 15 questions?
I responded to them, and when I did and looked at the videos like 15 times in a row, back and forth, watching the entire thing, then
I have the script on my website when I did my article response.
All those questions were answered by 400 years ago. So,
well, they all, if you turn it into an argument, they have contradictory statements, but.
It seems to me that if you're already an atheist when it comes to all those other religions, but the one you happen to be raised in is the one correct one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. By the way, who wants to join me in responding to claim that Hitler was a Christian?
He was
I can debunk it. I don't even have to be a historian or anything like that. Just simple.
He followed a subcult section of what we would call Christianity in terms of like Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormonism, something along those lines.
Well, people claim to be Christian, where Jesus and the disciples were blonde hair and blue eyes. And
that's
false.
He also destroyed he forbid teaching of the Old Testament and destroyed Jewish parts of the New Testament. So he goes
the whole
into
Jesus guy who was Jewish,
Has anyone actually read that translation, by the way?
No.
Translation.
He basically ordained a New Testament translation of the Bible.
Was Hitler a King James onlyist?
Hold on, everyone. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. He and like literally 90% of the Bible out of the Bible, was by the time
Essence of Sophistry claimed that Essence of Sophistry conjectured that based on Carrier's findings that Hitler admired Moses, even though Moses is the poster boy for the entire Jewish worldview.
He's sort of one of the main characters of the Tanakh and Torah and so on.
Unless Moses wasn't a Jew either.
Well, I think it's clear that he was. Well, even then,
he wasn't just a Jew; he was the Jew. He was the Jewish Jew that ever Jewed a Jew.
No, Jesus was the Jew who came first for literally the Messiah.
That's the most that's one of the most undisputable facts of history that Jesus was a Jew.
Yeah, that's my favorite claim. Even if we grant that Hitler believed in the Bible and so on, I think we could establish that he had a horrible understanding of what was teaching, because clearly it taught that Christ came for the Jews first and then the Gentiles.
Yeah,
right.
Here's one of the translations or the verses that is used with that translation that I mentioned. The one that talks about I come baptizing you with water, but there'll be one that comes baptizing you with fire, or fire of the Holy Spirit, his version says I come baptizing you with water, but there will be one that comes baptizing you with the mentality of separation. So he's using the political terms that they used for the Nazi Party, which literally was one of them is the mentality of separation.
Wow. Would it be fair to say that would it be fair to say that he was a heretic?
Absolutely. Like I said, he is in a group that's much like Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons.
Well, I think he's worse.
Here's the thing. Even with Mormons, here's the thing. Even with Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses, they at least accept the Old Testament. Now, do they have a warped understanding of the Old Testament? Yes. But they at least accept it. Hitler didn't even do that.
Hold on. Essence of Sophistry said that Hitler justified his rhetoric based on numbers and all that.
No.
So he's going to use the Jewish law book to show that the Jews have to be exterminated. Yep.
Yeah,
sounds about right.
Here's the thing.
Well, and here's the thing. Like even numbers, the Old Testament things are those are didactic laws. They're not like penal laws. So
more descriptive and prescriptive, probably. They weren't.
Since they claim that it is. 611 or 613, whatever. All those laws were based on the Code of Hammurabi and other pagan law codes. So wouldn't they be moralizing against pagan laws rather than, Jewish law?
Here's the thing I always get with that, because I actually had someone do that before, where they said the Jews stole from the Code of Hammurabi. I'd say
they made it a lot better.
Here's what I say. Any system of law is going to have some agreements on some issues.
Right, especially when the golden rule is universal.
Let's say we didn't know each other. If we sat all of us in a room and we just said what do we agree on that is morally wrong, there's going to be some overlap of what we say is wrong. Probably all of us will agree that murder is wrong, stealing is wrong. We'll all agree on those things.
And of course, me and RC would point to Romans too.
So are we going to say that? Are we going to end up saying that? Oh, well, we copied off of each other because we all agree on certain morals? No, you can easily say that, the 10 Commandments focused on the most important laws, and the only reason why they really agree with the Code of Hammurabi is because those were the best laws.
Well, on Hitler, I just wanted to say
when you read them, the Code of Ur-Nammu and Code of Urugina and the Hittite law codes and the Middle Assyrian codes, it seemed to have a lot of those Hebrew laws seem to match word for word. Some of them.
Well, here's another thing: is they'll even say this. They'll still forget that all these things were didactic.
Well, you have the civil laws, the ceremonial laws, and then the moral laws, which would be the 2 greatest commandments, and then the 10 commandments, which I think are still part of the new covenant.
Homosexuality is one of the universals.
Well, I think that may not. It's not obviously not necessarily following under the 10 Commandments, but it may still be something that's picked up, obviously.
I just wanted to say, going back to the Hitler thing, I just wanted to say that the Nazi regime, the Christian churches, and in the Office of Strategic Services, which was a CIA forerunner, it confirmed the Nazi plan to eradicate Christianity from their Third Reich. That's all I wanted to say on that.
The Catholic Church hated Hitler.
Yeah,
the Catholic Church in that one area agreed with them.
No. But the Nazis were a Christian movement. Aaron Ross said so.
Well, see,
they were a form of it in terms of where Aaron Ross would only go by it in the same way that he views Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses as Christians, but in terms of the Bible and all that, obviously, in the same way, those two aren't Christian. Hitler and his group likewise wasn't Christian, and it doesn't surprise me that him and the Roman Catholic Church within Germany ended up having a consensus and agreement upon each other.
Well, I don't think, but most of them didn't. The ones who did not agree to the consensus, they were thrown in the camps along with the Jews and all the other ones as well.
Also, the Concordat. The thing about those Catholic Concordats is that they're usually done when the Catholic Church doesn't have good relations with a certain regime, like the Concordat of 1804. That was done right after the French Revolution and the French Revolution's de-Christianization campaign. Same thing with Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can thank Captain America for stopping Hydra, because we would all be speaking German right now.
Well, here's a funny thing. You have to know that Captain America and Wolverine fought alongside each other because they both fought in the Civil War.
Well, see, we lost the Infinity War, unfortunately. I'm surprised us five are still here.
Well, yeah. So
Wonder Woman fought in World War I.
It's no wonder why the South lost. The South lost the war. The North had Wolverine and Captain America fighting.
Yeah,
and Wonder Woman fought in World War I.
And Wonder Woman.
Well, what wasn't Wonder Woman? What wasn't that in World War II?
No, that was one.
Oh yeah,
it was.
Yeah.
So they had all these superheroes fighting. So yeah, there's no surprise that they won.
The X-Men prevented the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Then Thor.
Superman. And Superman stopped the KKK.
I do have to admit the existence of Thor, because he almost saved he almost saved half the universe, but he failed.
Well, think about this. Think about what Thor. Think about what Norse mythology promises. If you believe in Thor, you will never have to worry about frost. If Thor existed, you would not have frost giants. Do you see any frost giants?
I'm sorry. To quote Captain America, I believe there's only one God, and he doesn't dress like that.
Yeah, that's my favorite from those movies.
No, I'm almost shocked they added that in this day and age.
That's
why I
like
like
Captain America.
That's why I love most of those movies.
It would be no surprise that Captain America would be the Christian, because obviously he's the Christian one.
Well, because he was born in a Christian country.
World War when the godless ideology.
People back in that time frame were very devoutly Christian.
Right, and also they saw
especially Germany.
They also saw it as part of back during the Cold War. Back during the Cold War, the whole Christian mindset against communism. It's us Christian against atheistic communism, just like it's us Christian democracy.
What else surprised me? Like in Wonder Woman, of course they went by the Stoic religion. They replaced God with Zeus and Ares in the role of Lucifer.
I was wondering you guys' take on the Job and because I had to correct Pelagia or whatever his name is on
Pelagia.
Pelagia, where he said that Satan was in Job.
It wasn't that wasn't Lucifer. That was Azrael, the angel of death, and the black sheep of the divine council. That was the Satan of Job.
Well, I don't know if it was the specific title as far as the specific identity. All we know is the one person that's a part of the divine council that does have the title known as Ha-Satan, the
adversary.
Right. So I don't know about this Israel name.
If you take
and Azrael means help of God. So yeah.
Then if you accept if it's a historical book, then the specifics may be correct. But if we're talking
that's not really the point.
But no, actually, I think it is, because if you have, like in the Book of Revelation, is it more historicism or is it more idealistic? You have these characters who the divine councilmen could be possibly representing all of heaven, and then you have the one who challenges God and so on. And now, whether that's true or not, I'm just sort of adding in there to add in my point of the type of book we're dealing with here.
Anyway, where were you getting at, Brass?
I mean, another thing that we have to take into consideration is like there was a time period. I don't know if it was during Job. I know Job is the oldest book of the Old Testament, but I mean, weren't they henotheists at the time of Job's writing?
No. They're monolateralis.
No, they weren't.
Yeah, that's just like the same.
Monolateralis means like you accept there's other heavenly beings, but recognize that there's only one God worthy of worship.
No, you can also be a monotheist and still accept there are other heavenly beings.
Yeah.
I still think Baal and all those other gods do not exist. And I think Isaiah makes that.
Well, no, but anyway, where were you getting at with Job?
Oh, me?
Oh
no, Brass. You brought it up.
Oh yeah, I was just wondering because I was going to be correcting Apologia on that because of the in the comment section of one of my videos he brought up I was wondering about how
I did see that little dispute.
Yeah, he won. Like I was saying that Satan has full knowledge of God.
Oh, I can help you.
So I mean, and I was kind of going into debate with him, and
I countered him on Shannon's podcast. So when he says Satan had full knowledge of God, yes, he didn't believe that God exists. He knew that God exists. Now, if we have full knowledge, as in 100% certainty, obviously we don't choose that belief. Obviously, in that sense.
Yeah, but he had delusions of grandeur. But that's not the Satan we're talking about. The Satan of Job was the black sheep of the divine council.
Well, he would also point to James, where the demons know, even the demons know that God exists and Christ is Lord, and so on.
Yeah, which makes anti-theists a lot more useful to them than their worshippers.
So notice how. Yes, Satan had full knowledge of God, and he could still deny to follow him or whatnot. So you have two different types of things here. You have whether you believe in Christianity or believe that Christianity is true, but to believe in Christianity, you have to take that act of trust. God and so on.
That would really, then again, you got to ask him which Satan is he talking about? Is he talking about the Satan, Lucifer, the Lightbringer, or the black sheep of the divine council?
He's a former young Earth creationist, so we know what Satan's referring to.
He does good debunking that stuff, but when he gets more into the theology, I think he's a little weak on that.
Oh yeah,
that's where there's hope concerning, for example, Rob of Sentinel Apologetics. That they had first met and gone over some of the ideas that he believes in, and he manages to get from Paul saying, you make some very convincing points. You might actually just get me back to being a Christian, going to your perspective. At least that's what I've heard.
Right. Rob had a Hindu background, or was he just from India?
Who?
Rob.
Yeah.
He was from India. He was an atheist before that. Before he was a Christian.
Yeah, I heard that he became a theist after being an atheist for a while. So he sort of falls into David Woods' camp, where David Woods was a very militant atheist for a long time.
Well, he's literally a sociopath, and he admits that in many of his things. So he has
David Woods, sociopath.
Yeah, he tried to kill his father.
Yeah. I think Christianity has ultimately helped him get over that. Obviously. I think
there was a Muslim apologist I saw called Answering Christians 1 who's debated James White, and I forget who the female apologist was that he debated, but and he's also very big friends with Robert Price and Richard Carrier. But this Muslim said David Wood has a history of mental problems, so it's quite clear that anything David Wood says must automatically be dismissed because this guy's just got mental issues and it's part of his mental problems.
Einstein had mental problems.
He was autistic. Back then, literally, they would have labeled Einstein mentally retarded since they didn't have a term for asked for autism for that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a very he had Asperger's autism, what they would call it.
Yeah, because he didn't speak until 4.
Yeah. And what's funny is they originally at first thought he was retarded, but it wasn't until later on that they found out that he clearly wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
He actually learned from what I read about some of his biographies. I think he even learned how to play like an instrument, like a violin or something.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be funny how much I actually know about random things about history because I research a lot.
Oh, my father knows so much useless information. It's funny.
Yeah. Well, that's the job when you're a father. Your job as a father is to know bad jokes and useless information.
That literally describes
that's just a
mine.
That's just a requirement if you become a father. That's like the 2 must-haves.
Yeah.
Bad jokes and useless information.
So literally, I'm on my Facebook here, and 2 groups just popped up: Young Earth Creationists, and then King James Onlyist.
Oh God!
Damn it, man!
I'm just going to follow them just when I post my articles and stuff against those 2 views, just to post them on there.
Yeah, how long have we been going?
You guys clearly know that the correct translation is the King James.
Yeah, which was what is it, like 20 manuscripts they're translated from?
Right. Yeah. And the Protestant church is the only true church.
Apparently, a king from the Elizabethan era has the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Well,
Protestant church is the true church.
Well, I ultimately agree that the Protestant church has much better theology than the Catholic Church, but I think
much closer than the original.
Don't tell Dean that.
Oh, he already knows. That's why he doesn't want to talk, because he doesn't want to engage with the facts that I've looked up and even looked in Roman Catholic resources.
Well, I think the earliest church fathers probably know more than any Christian nowadays, in my more honest opinion, and so on.
Yeah,
because they were the closest to the ones knowing Christ and so on. And honestly,
it's just, if I were to convert to Christianity, it would either be Roman Catholicism or Eastern Orthodoxy. I'm not too big into Protestantism.
Well, let me ask that then. Why would you choose those over that? What's Protestantism that turns you off to that first?
Is it the whole free will thing?
Could be, but also, I just
I believe in free will.
They're much more puritanical on average.
They're much more what?
Puritanical.
What do you mean by puritanical?
Like when it comes to
that's the genetic fallacy. I think if you're trying to more discredit just because the Puritans believed in that, then I think you're.
I'm not talking about the Puritans. I'm talking about puritanical, which
okay.
Southern Baptists are really conservative when it comes to sexual, this is gonna get awkward, sexual morals and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just and also other things too, they're extremely much more traditional, I think.
If I became a Christian again, I would probably
you have certain Anglicans that are also that. You also have Lutherans and Reformed Baptists that also are likewise traditional. I've seen sermons where they go for a similar kind of concept, except they ain't doing the whole burning incense and all these other things that are going on. And they're actually preaching inside of the churches, reading from the sacred scriptures, especially trying to revive back with expositional preaching. For one of them, lost preaching styles that's been dead for quite some time, and it's being revived.
Well, see, the biggest problem with the church nowadays is we have too many divisions among us. I think Paul I'm pretty sure in Ephesians he makes clear that there's too many divisions.
Which even that itself,
there be no divisions among you.
Yeah,
right. But even then, there's also divisions among Eastern Orthodox. There's divisions among the Catholics. Yeah. There's also
there's divisions among Protestants and so on.
And there was divisions in the early church. If you look clearly, every single early church father agreed with each other.
I think he's talking more of don't necessarily make divisions and then not describe
But the thing is, when we go about these divisions, the context of that is over dividing yourself over essential issues, because even the people like Methodists and the Baptists, like I'm a Southern Baptist, we can say that the Wesleyans, Methodists are brothers and sisters in Christ because they affirm the essentials, and we even quote John Wesley.
Yeah, that's why I completely agree with that. Just Romans 14 is it let one be convinced in his own mind, and so on concerning these details that haven't been necessarily resolved. Or
I think Steve and Surus and others are responding to the Shannon and Friended stream also.
I'm actually doing a discussion with Surus and a collaboration video against young Earth creationism.
Yeah,
I actually like his channel. He literally just made a video of and he got a lot of hate for it. Arguments that the worst arguments against God, and he puts the omnipotence paradox and who created God arguments in there. So that right there,
at least he recognizes that,
right?
Yeah. So that, and he's omitted. Like I've had Twitter conversations, and he's very open minded. I sort of sort of changed his views on some things concerning philosophy and so on. I think.
Yeah, but if he ever turns into agnostic or starts to be open-minded towards the possibility of there being a God, they're going to turn on him.
He calls himself a philosophical agnostic, which to me is still saying you're an agnostic theist. I think.
Well, he seems to think that there's no. He seems to really think that there's no heaven or hell. So.
Right.
Oh yeah. Well, you could still be a theist in that sense, because that there's nothing really tied into.
Deist is technically a theist. William Lane Craig points that as a deist is technically a theist because deism is just a subset of theism.
Yeah, if you take theism as the belief in God, then polytheism would technically be a subset because you have poly, which is many, and then theism, God, so belief in many gods.
That's the atheist definition of theism, religion, belief and worship of a deity.
Well, yeah,
the actual academic definition of religion is a set of beliefs, arbitrary or otherwise, binding humans into a shared cooperative community and/or identity.
Mm-hmm. Right, but yeah, Robert, I would suggest not going necessarily to Roman Catholicism, Eastern Orthodox, because there's really no good case to make for these. Based on what I've seen and based on especially what the writings of the early church fathers indicate.
And the thing of it is, I'm going to always end up doing my own research. I'm not too... And another thing, too, I noticed that I have a problem with Protestantism is that I tend to notice a lot of bad things, like Martin Luther, who was like a vitriolic anti-Semite.
Mm-hmm.
He was... So...
Well, he also...
I noticed a lot of bad things.
And I've also done the same. I've heard the same criticism about Calvin, which is the person that
he was apparently a murderer or something like that.
Well, that's the thing.
No, he advocated Old Testament law punishment,
right? But he didn't murder anybody. Every time they quote that, they don't realize that that's actually a forgery from an anti-theist named Voltaire, who hated Christianity so much that he decides to write forged documents of what supposed people said.
He wasn't anti-theist. He was deist, but he's still
it's still anti-theist when you say that these certain religions and these certain
anti-Christianity
are
one at a time, people.
So that was Voltaire, not Calvin's thoughts.
Right, that he basically said, okay, I'm going to make up what Calvin said. I'm going to make up this document that never existed and write something. That's literally what it was.
Did he do that with Luther also?
No, he didn't do that with Luther. He did that with Calvin. But point is that even concerning the writers of these things that people have done, they're human beings. They should not be what you look up to concerning a certain conviction. I never became a Calvinist because I haven't even picked up a single book by John Calvin. I became a Calvinist because I read the Bible. That's the only reason that I became a Calvinist, and that is what I think everyone's beliefs should stem from, is from reading.
Well, don't call your beliefs after somebody unless you actually know about
the reason I call it Calvinism is because, one, that's only name really people go by, because even then they called themselves Reformed.
Let me ask you this, RC apologist.
Hold up. This is important. Calvinist was actually an insult nickname given by the Lutherans when they would go around and call them, saying, "Hey, you Calvinists." Just like Lutherans was an insult as well by Roman Catholics. And same thing as Christianity or Christians was an insult term used towards them back then. It was originally an insult term where they just called themselves elect or brethren or church. So yeah,
I was gonna say that Voltaire's ideas, his ideas went on to inspire the violent anti-religious tendencies of the French Revolution too. So
yeah. So what were you gonna say, JM?
Well, a new question popped up. Do you think the two witnesses in Revelation are Calvin and Luther?
No.
Really, I heard that the two witnesses were going to be Enoch and Elijah, or Moses and Elijah.
No, obviously they're Ken Ham and Kent Hovind.
Oh,
God. What was your other question before that one?
So this is something I ask. So John Calvin was French, I'm pretty sure, and the original. Actually, I may have asked you this already. Now that I think about it, but so the original 5 points. If you take tulip, obviously you don't spell tulip with an I in French, so irresistible grace may have not been an actual view of Calvin, at least in those 5 points. But that's something
tulip wasn't even made by Calvin.
That's also another thing as well.
Yeah. Calvin just would be pretty much like a proto-Calvinistic theology, since that was most of the concepts, except Luther shared like total depravity, unconditional election, amongst other similar views. But tulip was formed at the Synod of Dort.
I hold to radical depravity. We're really bad, but we're not the worst we could be in that sense.
I'm a 5-point Baconist. That's what I am.
I'm like a 2, maybe a 3-point Calvinist at most. I won't agree with unconditional election and irresistible grace. But I would agree with perseverance of the saints. Somewhat with total depravity. Again, I would believe in radical depravity, which is part of roses, which are the 5 points of Molinism. And then, what's the other one? Tulip.
Yeah, I wouldn't even be tulip anymore. I'd say I'm a 5-strip Baconist. Bad people, already elected, completely atoned for, overwhelmingly called, never falling away. So Bacon.
I may have to become that now.
It's very good to be a part of it because it's biblical and it's tasty.
Well, I think no Christian would disagree on bad people.
Well, I mean, you'll get a lot of heat from the Jews for that.
Why is that? Oh, yeah, because of bacon.
Well, no, man, you're going to get death threats from Muslims now.
Muslims.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, let them come. I've offended people because I decided to quote Islamic scholars and such. Like when I came out with a video from an Islamic scholar stating that there are textual variants in the Quran. I had people saying, you need to take this video down because you're spreading lies. And I swear I will get your channel taken down if you don't take this video down. Like they're threatening to take my channel down just because I'm exposing Islam and the Quran for what it is.
I'm not as big as critique, even though it's obviously a bigger problem for Christianity than just the new atheist movement itself, because that movement is dead. It's more of this anti-theist movement. But I'm somewhat familiar with the counter arguments to Islam as well.
Yeah,
like the fact that if there are contradictions between the Bible and Quran, then since the Quran affirms that these are past revelations.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to say there's contradictions in the Old and New Testament. Because obviously we would disagree.
The Quran borrows a lot from. The Quran borrows a lot from like children's stories from the time of Muhammad's time, like some heretical like views of Cain and Abel and stuff like that.
David Wood pointed out, if you want to learn history, you don't start with Mother Goose and Brothers Grimm.
Right.
Oh, did you have to end the stream because we've been going for like?
Sure. We can end it now if you want.
Well,
is there anything else you wanted to bring up?
Just that Islam is false. Muhammad is a false prophet. Turn to Christ and live. That's what I would say.
And Joseph Smith brings the
I'm
plates.
gonna get death threat from Muslims now.
Mr. Brass, your one joke. What was Jesus brings the bread? Then
oh yeah,
Joseph
I said
Smith brings...
there's a party of prophets. Jesus brings the bread. Noah brings the water. What does Joseph Smith bring? The plates.
Yeah. I found 2 of your jokes pretty bad, but the rest were pretty funny.
Okay, well, we should end it now.
Yeah.
All right, because I do got a question for you after that, Rob.
Okay. This has been another live stream. Thanks to the Russian bot, Comrade Dimitri. And you all have a good night, everyone. And do svidaniya.